LeBron Ball's dance. LeBron had just come off a one-game suspension and stepped right back into the spotlight with one of the more infamous celebrations in recent memory. During a tight game in Indianapolis against the Pacers, with the clock winding down in regulation, he hit a clutch three-pointer to give the Lakers some breathing room. On his way back down the court, he celebrated with the move known as the Sam Cassell dance. And yeah, it's that one. The same one the league's been cracking down on for years. LeBron's version didn't get a laugh from the league office. They slapped him with a fine of $15,000 US, and that was just for the gesture. He also got a warning for using language the league didn't love in his media availability afterward. What made the whole thing stand out more was the timing. This was only 2 days after he served a suspension for an altercation with Isaiah Stewart, and right before that celebration, LeBron had 2 fans ejected from the game for what he said were completely out-of-line comments, including one reportedly involving his son. So the energy was already high, and the spotlight was absolutely on him. And just to show the consistency, or at least the pattern, the league had fined Fred VanVleet earlier that same month for the exact same dance, with the exact same price tag. So the rulebook isn't just pulling a one-off on LeBron here. They've made it pretty clear that as funny as it might seem in the moment, the dance doesn't fly when it's on national television with kids watching. The league sees it as crossing into obscene territory, even if it's brief. The fact that LeBron, one of the most visible and influential athletes on the planet, didn't get a pass shows the NBA's line is drawn in permanent marker when it comes to what they'll let fly after a big shot. The message was loud: keep the heat, but drop the gesture. Dwight Howard tongue jet. Dwight Howard got hit with a $35,000 fine after an incident during a regular season game between the Hornets and the Cavaliers. It happened on a Friday night in late November of 2017 when Charlotte lost a tight one in Cleveland by just a single point. And while the game itself was close, the league had no hesitation when it came to handing out punishment for what went down in the second. With just over 4 minutes left before halftime, Howard made a gesture on the court that the league didn't waste time calling obscene. What made it worse was that the move seemed directed toward the crowd. Not a heat-of-the-moment celebration after a big play, but something deliberate and pretty inappropriate. The footage was clear enough for the league to act the very next day. They dropped the hammer with a $35,000 fine and labeled it unsportsmanlike conduct. At the time, Howard was a 14-year vet, and he wasn't exactly a stranger to league discipline. This was already his 5th fine that season. He was putting up solid numbers, averaging around 15 points and 13 boards. But the league wasn't factoring that into the punishment. They made it clear that player status or stat lines don't change the expectations for professional behavior on the court. Now, this wasn't classified as a signature celebration or some quirky move he's known for. It was a one-off, and not in a good way. That's part of why the league treated it like a serious offense. Unlike other gestures that follow a game winner or major dunk, this one didn't tie back to a specific play. It stood on its own, and not in a way that's getting a highlight reel. The fine also shows the league's stance on gestures that involve fans. They tend to draw a harder line when a gesture's directed into the crowd. Even though it wasn't during the playoffs, where fines sometimes jump higher, the size of this one shows how the league looks at intent and reputation. So when it comes to banned celebrations, this one lives in that gray area. It wasn't a victory dance. It was an example of what not to do, especially when the cameras are rolling. Morant's gun gesture. Morant was fined $75,000 for making a finger gun gesture during back-to-back games in early April of 2025. The first happened on April 1st, when he pointed the gesture toward the Warriors bench. The league issued a warning. 2 days later, he did it twice more in a tight win over the Heat. And this time, the NBA decided that a fine was coming. The league didn't say he meant anything violent by it, but the warning made it clear: knock it off or pay up. When he ignored that and did it again, they followed through. By April 4th, the fine was official. The gesture wasn't hidden either. Arm extended, thumb up, fingers shaped like a pistol after draining a shot. That's not something that slips past cameras or league officials, especially with his history, and that history matters here. Morant had already been suspended twice for real firearm-related situations off the court. One was for 8 games in March of 2023, and the other was 25 games at the start of the next season. Both were tied to social media videos showing him flashing an actual gun. So when he starts mimicking that imagery on court, even playfully, the league doesn't see it as harmless fun. They see a pattern. After the fine dropped, Morant didn't exactly back off celebrations. He just swapped the finger gun for a grenade toss. Literally, he pretended to pull a pin, lob an imaginary grenade, and sometimes even covered his ears after the pretend explosion. He said that would be his new go-to celebration. Unless, of course, someone decided to have a problem with that too. Now, this whole thing shines a light on where the line gets drawn. The NBA didn't say his gestures were threatening, but they were inappropriate. Celebrations after big plays are one thing, but when they even hint at weapon-related imagery, especially from a player with that kind of past, the league steps in fast. The context makes all the difference. So for banned celebrations, Morant's case is a prime example of how a gesture can get flagged not for what it is alone, but for what it reminds people of, and how the league wants the game to look on a bigger stage. By the way, if you guys want to subscribe, I'm going to be posting every day. Thanks. Anyways, Dikembe's finger wag. Dikembe made the finger wag famous, but it also made his bank account lighter. After blocking a shot, he'd turn and shake his index finger back and forth in a classic no motion, usually toward the shooter or in their direction. The gesture became one of the most iconic moves in basketball, but the league was not amused. The NBA eventually cracked down on it, classifying it as taunting, and that meant fine. Dikembe said himself that he lost thousands and thousands of dollars over the years just for wagging his finger. He mentioned specific amounts, $2,000, $5,000, even $10,000, all tied to that one celebration. The gesture might have been simple, but the consequences weren't. Things came to a head during the 1998-99 season. That year, the NBA took it a step further and straight up banned the move. So instead of just fining him, officials were now calling technical fouls or issuing further discipline if he kept it up. It wasn't just about Dikembe either. The league was trying to rein in any gesture that looked like taunting, especially those directed at opposing players after big plays. Before the ban, Dikembe had used the move to punctuate some legendary moments. In one game, he blocked Clarence Weatherspoon 3 times in a row and wagged the finger each time. It was his version of a mic drop, but that swagger came with a cost. Even though he blocked over 3,000 shots in his career, each celebration walked a tightrope between fun and flag-worthy. The finger wag wasn't some one-off moment or an accidental habit. It was a signature. Fans loved it, teammates got hyped, and broadcasters knew it was coming. But the league saw it as a threat to professionalism, especially when it looked like direct taunting. That's where the fines started piling up. This is a perfect example of how a celebration can get banned, not because it's violent or obscene, but because it flirts with disrespect. The NBA wanted to cut back on anything that might spark trash talk or escalate tension. So even a simple finger motion, when aimed the wrong way, turned into a major rule change, and a costly one for the guy who started it. Jimmy Butler. Hump gesture. Jimmy Butler wasn't even on the floor when he earned a fine, and somehow that made it even better. During Game 5 of the Eastern Conference first round in 2022, he was sidelined with knee inflammation, but that didn't stop him from getting the league's attention. With just under 2 minutes left in the second quarter, Butler celebrated a teammate's run by making a thrusting motion from the bench. It was a quick move, but not quick enough to avoid the cameras or the league's disciplinary team. The league officially labeled it an obscene gesture. Butler was fined $15,000 for it. And just to keep things even, the Heat were also fined $15,000 for posting the moment as a GIF on their social media. The double whammy came down 2 days later, and it showed how much the league monitors everything, not just on-court play, but sideline, benches, and what teams post online. Now, Butler didn't pretend it was an accident. He actually blamed his coach in a joking way, saying it was Eric Spoelstra's fault for encouraging players to celebrate each other's success. His logic, Max Strus goes on a scoring run, Butler celebrates it enthusiastically, and the league celebrates that enthusiasm by taking $15,000. Solid exchange rate. But what makes this one stand out is the fact that Butler wasn't playing. He wasn't in uniform, yet the league made it clear that behavior on the sideline still falls under their rules, especially if it's visible to fans, cameras, or later shared across social media. The gesture might have looked like a joke in the moment, but from the league's perspective, it crossed the line. And when a team reposts something like that online, it doesn't help. The Heat getting fined as well shows how the league wants everyone, players and franchises, to steer clear of promoting anything they consider inappropriate or not in line with professional standards. So the consequences landed on both the player and the team. For banned celebrations, this one checks all the boxes. Off the court? Check. Captured on camera? Yep. Posted online for the world to see? Absolutely. And all of that turned a quick bench-side joke into a $15,000 reminder that the league's rulebook doesn't come with a laugh track. Kyrie's middle finger gesture. Kyrie's return to Boston for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference first round in 2022 turned into a headline for all the wrong reasons. The Nets were in a tight one against the Celtics, and emotions were already running high. Boston fans were loud, hostile, and eager to let their former point guard hear it. In response, Kyrie gave them a double dose, flipping the middle finger not once, but twice during the game. One came during play, another as he walked off the court. The gestures were clearly caught on camera and impossible for the league to ignore. 2 days later, the NBA dropped a $50,000 fine, citing obscene gestures on the playing court and profane language toward the spectator stands. It wasn't just about the finger. The league said he was directing inappropriate words at the crowd too. After the game, Kyrie didn't hold back. He admitted to the gesture and said he was reacting to personal insults. According to him, fans were yelling obscenities from the stands, including some of the most profane slurs. He said there's only so much a person can take, especially during the playoffs. But the league has its limits, and this crossed the line. Now the context makes this one even more loaded. Kyrie played in Boston for 2 seasons before joining Brooklyn, and let's just say the split wasn't clean. The Boston crowd had been waiting for this game, and the energy was thick. Kyrie had already mentioned in the past that he'd heard offensive and even racially charged comments from that fan base, so when he came back in a playoff atmosphere, there was no love lost. Still, the league doesn't give exceptions for emotional flashpoints, even when the crowd's behavior might be out of line. Their policy's clear. Players are expected to maintain professionalism no matter what's happening around them. So Kyrie's middle finger, salute, even if it felt like a response, got the same treatment as any other on-court gesture that breaks league conduct. This moment stands out as a reminder. Even playoff intensity doesn't override the league's standards. Gestures aimed at fans, especially the obscene kind, will cost you, even if you think you're just giving that energy right back. Thanks to DraftKings Sportsbook for sponsoring this video. Basketball's officially back, and every night feels like a highlight waiting to happen. If you love watching hoops, there's no better way to stay involved in the action than with DraftKings Sportsbook. Here's the offer. New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins. Paid in bonus bets, plus get 3 months of NBA League Pass no matter what. That means you're catching every dunk, clutch shot, and overtime thriller, even if your first bet doesn't hit. Just sign up using promo code MODERNJAM, make that first $5 bet, and you're in. It's that easy. You'll get to watch games live and use your bonus bets on any upcoming matchups you want. DraftKings makes betting simple and exciting. You can go live mid-game, follow every score in real time, or build same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. And with League Pass included, you'll never miss the moments everyone's talking about the next day. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up using promo code MODERNJAM, and start playing today. New customers bet $5 and get $300 if your bet wins, plus 3 months of NBA League Pass no matter what. This message is sponsored by Raycon. And listen, these aren't just earbuds. They've become my go-to every single day. Raycon's everyday earbuds sound incredible, feel comfortable all day long, and actually stay put no matter what I'm doing. They've got active noise cancellation for when I want to tune everything out, and awareness mode when I'm out walking or running errands, so I can still hear what's going on around me. The new classic version adds multi-point connectivity, so I can switch between my phone and laptop instantly. 10 minutes of quick charge gets me 90 minutes of playtime. And with the case, you get up to 32 hours of battery life. I've been using the cool mint color lately. It's clean, minimal, and feels more like an accessory than tech. And honestly, over 4 million people already own Raycons, which says it all. Plus, there's a 30-day happiness guarantee. So if you don't love them, returns are easy. No risk at all. For Black Friday and Cyber Monday, Raycon's going big. Everything's up to 30% off. Whether you're shopping for gifts or grabbing a pair for yourself, now's the time to jump on it. So click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/modernjam to save up to 30% site-wide on Raycon audio products. I use these every day, and you should too. Joel Embiid, crotch chop. Joel Embiid hit the Celtics with more than just buckets during their Christmas Day showdown in Boston. After an and-one layup early in the game, he broke out the infamous D-Generation X crotch chop gesture, and the league wasted no time turning that into a $75,000 fine. The play happened with just under 4 minutes left in the first quarter, and even though the Sixers pulled off a win, Embiid's celebration ended up costing him more than most holiday gifts. The gesture itself has been in Embiid's playbook for a while. He's pulled it out before, but this time the league didn't let it slide. Why? Because it happened during a nationally televised game on one of the NBA's biggest days of the season, Christmas. The fine wasn't for what he said, but purely for the gesture, which the league labeled as obscene. It came down 2 days later, officially announced by Joe Dumars, the league's head of basketball operations. This wasn't Embiid's only run-in with league discipline that season. Earlier, he'd served a 3-game suspension for a locker room altercation involving a reporter. So, the league was already keeping a close eye on him. And when he added the crotch chop on top of that, they didn't hesitate. There wasn't a suspension this time, just the fine, but it was steep. It's worth noting that the celebration came in the middle of the first half, not after a game winner or a dagger shot. That timing, along with game's high-profile nature, made the gesture stand out even more. The NBA's policy doesn't just apply to trash talk or fights. It covers celebrations that dip into territory they see as inappropriate for broadcast or public image. The Sixers also shared media that included the gesture, adding another layer of scrutiny. Though the team didn't get fined separately this time, the combination of on-court actions and media visibility definitely helped put this one in the league spotlight. This case checks all the boxes for a banned celebration. It was visible, provocative, tied to pop culture, and done during a marquee event. And when you stack that with Embiid's history, the message from the league was clear. It doesn't matter how big the game is or how big the player is. There's still a line, and that gesture crossed it. Paul Pierce, gang signed. During Game 3 of the opening round of the 2008 playoffs, Paul Pierce made a hand gesture that ended up costing him $25,000. The Celtics were playing the Hawks in Atlanta, and late in the fourth quarter, Pierce approached the area near the Hawks bench. That's when he raised his right hand, formed a circle with his thumb and index finger, and extended the other 3 fingers. The league saw the move and labeled it a menacing gesture. That alone was enough to draw a fine, even though Pierce never said a word during the moment. He was pulled away by teammate Brian Scalabrine, but the league made it clear. It didn't matter if it was fast or subtle. They considered it a violation of conduct standards. The fine was announced shortly after the game, with the league emphasizing that gestures directed toward opponents or benches, especially those that resemble gang signs, would not be tolerated. Even though they didn't identify any specific gang or intention, they said the gesture resembled one and took action anyway. Pierce released a statement denying any connection to gang symbolism. He said he didn't promote violence and apologized if anyone took it the wrong way. General Manager Danny Ainge also weighed in, saying the gesture represented blood, sweat, and tears, and that Pierce used it regularly during introductions. That explanation didn't stop the fine from being issued. The game itself ended in a 93-102 loss for Boston, but the spotlight quickly shifted to what happened after the play, not on the scoreboard. Pierce's gesture, even without audio or context, was enough for the league to step in and send a message. This incident fits cleanly into the theme of banned celebrations and gestures. It wasn't a post-dunk flex or a taunting shimmy. It was a hand signal that, to the league, carried too much potential for misinterpretation. And back in 2008, the NBA was especially alert to anything that could be tied to menacing conduct, especially with cameras catching every move. The fine amount may not have been the largest, but it proved that even if a player says it meant nothing, perception still matters, especially when it's pointed right at the opposing bench. D. Wade, throat/gesture. D. Wade's debut with the Bulls came with a win and a fine. On October 27, 2016, Wade played his first game for Chicago and dropped 22 points in a tight one against the Celtics. The Bulls won 105-99, but the big story came after a clutch three-pointer late in the game, when Wade turned to the crowd and delivered a throat-slashing motion. That one gesture cost him $25,000. The league didn't hesitate. They labeled it a throat-slashing gesture and fined him the very next day. It didn't matter that it was his first game back in his hometown or that it was a hyped debut. The gesture crossed the line, and the NBA's policy around violent imagery left no wiggle room. Wade didn't try to downplay it either. He posted an apology right away, saying he got caught up in the emotion of the moment. He made a point to apologize to his young fans, knowing full well that millions were watching. The league still kept the fine in place, making it clear that intent doesn't erase impact when it comes to visual gestures on national broadcasts. The context made this one even more noticeable. Wade had just returned to Chicago, playing in front of a home crowd in a highly anticipated game. His late three sealed the win, and that would have been enough of a statement on its own. But that celebration added a whole new headline. The move itself, dragging the hand across the throat, is one of the league's most clearly banned gestures, with strong associations that push it into violent or threatening territory, according to league standards. This wasn't a first-time rule being enforced either. The NBA had fined players for this exact move before, It's one of those gestures that automatically trips a response from league offices. No suspension came down, but the financial penalty was a reminder that even in big emotional moments, there's still a line players are expected to respect. So for banned celebrations, Wade's cutthroat gesture fits the bill. It was bold, visible, and immediate, and the league came down on it fast. No matter how hyped the crowd is or how clutch the shot was, some celebrations are just off limits. Luka, jersey rip. Luka might be known for his flashy passes and cool demeanor, but frustration got the best of him more than once, and his jersey paid the price. On January 23, 2019, during a game against the Clippers, Luka grabbed his jersey and tore it clean down the middle in a moment of visible frustration. Then, less than a year later, on January 10, 2020, he did it again, this time after missing 2 free throws in a blowout loss to the Lakers. That second one happened with the Mavericks trailing badly. The Lakers had built a 20-point lead. The game was slipping away, and Luka's frustration boiled over. Right there on the court, he grabbed his jersey and ripped it nearly in half. After the game, he told reporters, "I played very bad. It was a raw moment. No flex, no celebration, just disappointment on display." Now, here's where things get murky. One report suggested Luka was fined $10,000 after the first incident, but there's a catch. No major outlet or league source confirmed that fine. The headline ran, "But deeper league records and standard NBA disciplinary announcements don't list it." So while the visual of a star player ripping his uniform mid-game made wave, the fine itself remains unverified. That makes this a weird case in the banned celebrations conversation. It's not a taunt. It's not a dance. It's not a post-three-pointer air guitar. It's a moment of frustration, pure emotion with a jersey torn down the chest. But because it's so public, it still touches on how the league keeps an eye on all kinds of on-court behavior. The NBA usually reacts when gestures or actions push into extremes, and a player visibly destroying his own uniform during a nationally televised game is exactly that. Even though this wasn't confirmed with an official fine, the incident shows how even non-celebratory gestures can grab the league's attention. Ripping a jersey isn't the kind of thing that'll get celebrated in highlight reels, but it's part of how players wear their emotions. In Luka's case, it also became part of how people remember the game and how the league might be quietly watching from behind the curtain. Big Balls Dance, the celebration that launched 1,000 fines, started with Sam Cassell and a movie quote. After watching Major League 2, where a character uses the phrase "you have no marbles" with a bold cupping gesture, Cassell decided to bring it to the court. He used the move, now famously known as the Big Balls Dance, after hitting big shots, especially during his time with the Timberwolves in the 2003 to 2004 season. The gesture itself is simple but unmistakable. Hands cupped, below the waist, walking with exaggerated confidence, like you just won the entire playoffs on a buzzer beater. Cassell said he didn't do it to taunt anyone, just to show confidence. And when Kobe Bryant later copied it, Cassell said that was the moment he knew the move had gone viral. But the league didn't share the enthusiasm. Cassell was never fined for it back then, but the NBA eventually changed its stance. Fast forward a few years, and players who busted out the same move started catching fines, usually in the $15,000 to $25,000 range. LeBron James found that out in 2021 when he hit a clutch shot and went full Cassell against the Pacers. The league responded with a $15,000 fine. One of the strangest twists, in the 2004 playoffs, Cassell reportedly injured his hip while doing the dance. That's right, the celebration itself allegedly contributed to him being less mobile for the next round. So not only did it end up costing others money, but it may have cost him a shot at a deeper playoff run. Now, the Big Balls Dance might not look aggressive or violent, but the league classifies it as obscene under their conduct policy. That means it doesn't have to be aimed at an opponent. Just doing it in plain view is enough to get flagged. Even though it started with humor and pop culture roots, it's landed squarely in the banned celebrations category. This one is a classic example of how a movie can become iconic, but also end up on the league's no-fly list. Cassell made it famous, but now it comes with a price tag if anyone else tries it on the hardwood. Gerald Green gun gesture. Green managed to score 28 points in a preseason game, and then promptly scored a $25,000 fine from the NBA for how he celebrated. The game happened in October of 2015, a preseason matchup between the Miami Heat and the Washington Wizards. The Heat won 110 to 105, but Green's biggest spotlight moment wasn't a dunk or a three-pointer. It was what came after. Late in the fourth quarter, after hitting back-to-back threes at 5 minutes 33 seconds and 5 minutes 12 seconds remaining, Green made two specific gestures. First, he did a trigger finger motion with his hand, the classic finger gun. Then, just to make sure nobody missed it, he added a throat slash gesture for good measure. These weren't subtle moves. They were directed, visible, and caught on camera. The league responded quickly. On October 23rd, they announced a fine of $25,000 for what they called menacing gestures on the playing court. That label puts the gestures in the same category as taunting or threatening behavior, even though it happened during a preseason game that didn't count in the standings. And that's part of what made this one stand out. It wasn't a playoff game. It wasn't national television. It was a preseason exhibition, the kind of game most people forget a week later. But the league didn't care. Green had just joined the Heat on a one-year deal that July, and this was one of his first chances to make an impression. Instead, the impression became a fine for over-the-top celebration. The NBA has made it clear that gestures hinting at violence, especially anything resembling weapons, are off limits, even when it's tied to a big play, even when it's not aimed at a specific person, and even when it happens before the season technically starts. That policy goes for finger guns, throat slashes, and anything else that can be labeled menacing or provocative. So for banned celebrations, this one checks all the boxes. Two flashy gestures, one preseason game, and a fine that came down fast. Green's hand motions might have felt like adrenaline in the moment, but to the league, they were a violation and a reminder that celebration still comes with rules. Jaylen Brown, throat slash gesture. Jaylen Brown threw down a monster dunk, then followed it up with something the league didn't appreciate nearly as much. It happened on December 4th, 2024, when the Celtics took down the Pistons at TD Garden. Brown went up strong over Isaiah Stewart with 12 seconds left in the first quarter and delivered a two-handed finish that sent the crowd into orbit. But instead of just walking away, he stared Stewart down, then pointed and dragged his thumb across his throat, the classic throat slash move. That celebration didn't fly with the league office. 2 days later, the NBA fined Brown $25,000, labeling the gesture inappropriate. Even though it happened early in the game and didn't lead to a technical foul in the moment, the league clearly reviewed it afterward and decided it crossed their line. The timing didn't matter. The game wasn't on the line, but the message was clear. The league watches everything. Afterward, Brown admitted he figured something was coming. He said the League and Players Association are sensitive about gestures like that and noted, "You've got to be mindful." So it wasn't a surprise. He knew what it looked like and knew the reaction was probably inevitable. Even with 28 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds, the highlight people were talking about wasn't the box score. Brown is no bench warmer either. He's a 3-time All-Star and serves as vice president of the Players Association. So when someone with that status gets hit with a fine for a gesture, it sends a message that nobody is exempt. The league isn't giving anyone a pass, even when the move follows a highlight, real dunk. The throat slash has always been one of those gestures that gets an immediate reaction. It doesn't matter if it's done toward the bench, a player, or just into space. The league treats it as too much, too aggressive, too suggestive, too close to crossing into taunt or threat territory. So even though it's quick and dramatic, it lands under the banned celebration umbrella. Brown's dunk got the crowd on their feet. His gesture got the league's attention, and his bank account got lighter. The play was electric, but the celebration cost him. Anthony Edwards' crotch gesture. Anthony Edwards picked up a $50,000 fine during Game 1 of the Western Conference first round, and it had nothing to do with basketball. The Timberwolves were dominating the Lakers, up 85-61 late in the third quarter. When things got heated off the ball, a fan had been heckling Rudy Gobert, and Edwards decided he'd had enough, so he stepped in. First, he shouted something back about Gobert's contract, pointing out that his teammate had 200 million reasons not to care what the fan was saying. But then it went further. Edwards grabbed his crotch and added some extra verbal spice aimed directly at the heckler. The moment didn't cause any stoppage or tech in real time, but cameras caught it, and the league reviewed it after the game. By April 22nd, the fine was official. The league charged him with directing inappropriate language and making an obscene gesture toward a fan. That combo, language plus gesture, put it well over the line, especially since it happened courtside, in full view. During a playoff game, Edwards ended the night with 22 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists. But the stat sheet wasn't what made headline. It was the post-basket behavior. The crotch grab has always been one of those gestures the NBA flags fast. It's not seen as a celebration. It's viewed as obscene, especially when it's aimed at someone in the stands. This wasn't the first time Edwards had picked up a fine that season either. Reports pointed out that he'd already been hit with multiple penalties for similar types of conduct, gestures, language, and general on-court behavior that crossed the league's line. So this one felt more like a running pattern than a one-time slip. And when it's directed at a fan, the league doesn't hesitate. They've been clear for years. Player-fan interactions are under tight watch, and once it crosses into something physical or vulgar, even without contact, the penalty is coming. Whether it's frustration, defense of a teammate, or just heat of the moment emotion, that doesn't change the policy. So this case stands out not as a banned celebration, but as a banned reaction, a move off the scoreboard that still costs big. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here. I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.